right. The software is recording, but now we have to wait for it to transfer
Oh, it's the
to.
power relays powering up here. He's throwing those switches left, right, and center. Frankenstein's monster will live. It lives. No, do it properly. My monster, it's alive.
It's alive.
It's
Yeah.
alive.
Okay. Where are we at, Ryan?
He's got to give it a second. Okay, so go to it now. It should be the first thing that comes up, and it says live under it.
All right, hold on. I'm clicking Indian River Hauntings.
Go to it, young
And,
man.
it's live. There it is. So just click it now.
Click it.
Hit it.
Make sure your volume's all the way down, and you're going to hear yourself.
Volume is down. Okay.
Hey, he liked hearing himself.
And I can see.
So you will see on the bottom it says live chat. Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Good. All right.
I check it. I just typed something in.
Okay, nothing yet.
You're gonna have to give it.
Sac de bleu.
Yeah, that's one of my users.
All right, I was looking for it. Oh, you suggested blue. It's long story.
Long story. Don't ask, please.
Okay, you just said hi, right, Ryan?
Yes, that was me.
Okay,
so now that's the live chat, and whenever somebody puts something in the live chat, then you'll see it, and you're good to go.
Outstanding. Let's get this show on the road.
Go ahead and see. Look, one of Chris's friends has joined in already.
Hey, hello, Chris, Larry, and Ryan. Glad to be tuning in. Commanding Judge Dredd.
That's Paul.
That's Paul.
I remembered it this time.
That's Judge. No, it's always Judge Dredd, man. That's the. But anyway, we're streaming live, so I'll see your questions now, Paul. So outstanding. Let's get this show on the road, folks. Welcome to our current episode of On the Air with Indian River Hauntings. I'm Larry Lawson, co-hosting this show with my dear friend in Durham, England, Chris Huff. Chris, can you manage a hello?
Hello.
Yeah, we're back, folks. We got a kind of an interesting show we're looking forward to tonight. I am also streaming right now. I can see the your comments as you're coming in, so I'm now going to be able to. We figured out a better way for us to comment on things that you're saying and questions that you have. First, want to give our usual shout outs. Mine to our good friends War Party Paranormal down there in West Palm Beach, Florida. Scotty Burns, who just gave me a call today, and we've got some interesting plans that we're going to collaborate on that you'll be seeing in the future on the Indian River Hauntings Facebook page and probably website. So I want to say hi to Scotty and all the folks down there at War Party Paranormal. Our good friend Damien Freddy over there in York, England, best storyteller in England. And I cannot begin a show without saying hello to my good friend Ike Enzi of IDK Paranormal cop out there in New Mexico. Watch for that, folks. We are going to be heading out there for a show. And Chris, you got some light going, bro.
Well, I thought if the camera was actually working, I'll try some light on it.
Okay. Oh, and Dan Clarkson, Dan Squatch is creeping in. Dan, do you notice what I have right up here on the wall? Do you see right there, Danny? That's for you, because next week we talk Bigfoot, Sasquatch, skunk ape. What do they call them in England?
Wild man.
Wild man.
Forest
okay,
folk.
so that'll have, yeah. But more importantly, getting back to my buddy Ike. By the way, IDK Paranormal, you want to see a really cool cop angled show on the paranormal, IDK Paranormal on YouTube. Like it, subscribe to it, and listen to it when it comes out. It's very cool. But he and I do have a bit of a challenge going, and I'm upping the ante, dude. I hope you're. Don't know if you're on just yet, but when you are, look at this, pal. 32 ounces of 8% alcohol by volume. This is from Paradolia Brewery in Sebastian, Florida, about 10 miles up the road from us, a local place. And folks, we actually just investigated it there last Saturday morning. We did a daytime investigation. Why? Because they were having their activity during the day there. And we got one of the coolest EVPs out of there. I'm sitting there recording, and I was telling Chris about it and Ryan about it also. And I'm recording a video of us doing a spirit box session, and suddenly I hear about 4 or 5 piano keys. And I turned to the gang behind me, and did you guys hear that? No, we didn't hear anything, but I just heard music behind me. Sure enough, I play the video back, not just a recording, the video back, and you can hear the notes of a piano. And when we started playing back our digital recorders, the piano came up on there also. Folks, the place was built in the 1950s as a post office. When it closed in the 80s, I believe, it became a hardware store, and it stayed that way until a few years ago when it became this brewery, this local, cottage brewery and Paradolia Brewery. So there's never been a piano in there, is my point, and it was just a terrific EVP, and that's kind of fill into some of the stuff we're going to talk tonight. But before that, I'm going to crack this bad boy that's been sitting in my fridge all week, waiting for tonight. 8%. This is a dark, I guess, a lager. Chris, would you call it if it's dark?
Not if it's dark. I mean,
Porter,
I'd
maybe?
have to see it. How?
Whoa. It's kind of got a deep chocolatey taste to it. Very bold tasting, and it's called Sidonia 76. Now, what do you think when I mean Sidonia? And do you know? And why 76?
No idea.
When our satellite, I forget the name of it, it passed by Mars and took pictures. That's when they got that picture, that big face on Mars. They called it Sidonia, and it was in 1976.
Right.
So this beer is called Sidonia 76. Paradonia Brewery in Sebastian, Florida. It is a terrific place to go have a brew, meet friends, great food. More important, Pete and the gang there are just some of the best people that you'd ever want to meet. And if you're in Sebastian, Florida, Paradolia Brewery on Cleveland Street, right off of US 1. Great place, highly recommended. And that's where this terrific beer came from. So I'm going to have another drink real quick here. And Ryan says that if I finish this all during the broadcast, I'm going to be drooling and falling all over myself when I'm done. So
yeah, well, we've seen you. You see, this is the thing we know.
And let's see who else we got here. Dan Paradolia. Dan mentions that Dan was there with me. He actually was part of that whole investigation. Frank says hi. Deborah Goldberg says hi to everybody.
Hello, Deborah.
Larry Christmas. And Dan, oh yeah, I got to tell about the ukulele. There behind us, there was a ukulele on the wall, and we kind of strummed the strings of it a little bit, and it kind of sounded like it. But once we all listened to it, no question, it was a piano. So pretty neat stuff. And anyway, thanks for being with us tonight. We kind of got Chris and I were talking, and we've got a topic that we're both kind of, I wouldn't say confused on, just maybe unsure of. And that's, well, I call it intelligent versus residual hauntings. And Chris uses the term sentient, non-sentient, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Same type of thing. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar with it, and I think from everybody that's on here right now, probably you would. In America, you mostly hear it referred to as intelligent or residual hauntings. And a residual haunt is almost as if it's on a recording, and it's the same event that stays the same every time it's seen, unchanged. Yep. The Marsh Landing restaurant's got one. It's the Lady in White. She goes from one part of the restaurant to the other, and you can't, if you say anything to her, you try to get her attention, it's point A to point B. She never changes her stare. It's straight ahead. She does not react to you. Now you compare that to an intelligent haunt, and that is where you get an actual reaction to it. Billy, the entity we call Billy in the old school there, is this the room you like to be in, Billy? And it answers, yes, sir. Boom. That's what we call an intelligent haunt. Be interested in hearing what you folks say about it. And I am keeping an eye on these questions, so feel free to jump in with them, guys. If I look away, that's because I'm looking at the phone. Chris, your thoughts on that?
It's not quite as simple. It never is.
It never is with you.
No, it never is. I mean, as I said, when I was 18, I knew absolutely everything under the sun. I wrote all sorts of technical manuals, all sorts of things, and it's absolute bollocks because it's not that simple. I have discovered that there are spirits who are locked in their own world, and they react rather like what you'd call a residual. They just go through doing this and this. But the one big difference that I found is that they do not necessarily repeat the same actions.
Okay, so it wouldn't
But
be.
they do not. Yeah, they do not react with you. They do not interact. They're so locked in what they're doing that you don't exist to them.
Oh,
But
it's almost like some of those old TV. Go ahead. I'm
but
sorry.
they can. I've just think I've lost it now. But they can change their routine. If you get a residual, a memory, a non-sentient, it can't change its routine. It's just a recording.
Mm-hmm.
So it walks from the front room to the kitchen
Mm-hmm.
every time. That's all you ever see. Whereas these others, you'll see them. They'll change. They'll go to the front room to the kitchen, and they'll come back out. Or the next time they'll just walk out of the kitchen, or the next time they'll walk in through the front door. Always the same person, always the same dress, always in the same
Right.
demeanor, but they're varying slightly what's happening. But they just
So
don't
that.
take any notice of you.
So are they almost like going? We'll go to that part for just a second. So that's an actual thinking, being on the other side, but it's just doing the same thing, almost as if it's trapped in a cage type of thing. Is that what you're?
It's all, not in a cage so much. It's like it's if you imagine a little bubble that it's got itself into this little bubble of its own little world in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you usually find that something's happened and it's been very traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's created this little bubble that it doesn't want to, it can't come out of this memory that it's got.
Mm-hmm.
If you can actually crack into that bubble, and it takes some doing, but if you can actually crack into that bubble, you can often get amazement from the spirit that it suddenly realizes what it's doing, and then you can pass it on. But you've got to get into that bubble.
Well, okay, and that's a kind of a variation, maybe a combination of the two. The one that really I just don't have the complete answer to yet is that residual haunt, and that's where, like in the lady in white in the Marsh Landing restaurant, goes from what we call the frog room to the front, no variation whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot get it to react to you at all. It's almost as if that event, and Dan even mentions it here, non-thinking, not well. Okay, he says non-thinking versus thinking. This is it happens. It's almost like a video recording.
Yep.
And I kind of have always viewed that as it's almost like the energy is trapped there. And it's not even a ghost as we would probably describe it, as much as it is just a video recording of an event that
That's
the
all
energy.
it is.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all. But what I can't answer, and I've been thinking for years on anything that I can think of as a reasonable answer to, is how it records in the first place.
Well,
I have no idea.
See, this is where I have a theory, and I think it's the material. Now um, you'll take the Marsh Landing, all wood, old wood. Wood is a great conductor. Water, energy, granite, some certain types of rock, granite, and what's a quartz is the other one I'm thinking of. Is that event, was the energy of what happened at the time so strong that it was recorded in that material and somehow is able to play back if certain things connect at the right time? Does that make sense?
It's as good as anything else I've heard. It's what I can say. There is a correlation between changes to the fabric of a building and these memories being released. So that if you do some work on a building, quite often it stirs things up again. So this comes back to your sort of thing. You're sort of like tapping into this recording by hitting bricks or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but something like this.
Well, here's the next question then. And by the way, before I forget, our good friend David in Lincolnshire had a question. I want to get to that in just a second, but I want to finish this thought first. Is it a ghost? Okay, now when we say ghost,
I hate
granted
that
that
term.
could fit.
I hate
I know
that
you
term.
do, but for the purposes of simplicity in this discussion, our typical description of an entity from the other side, and whatever word you want to use, ghost, spirit, whatever, is that what this is, or is it really just almost like a piece of film? And so can you put it in the same category as an entity from the other side? Does that
No, you
question?
can't. No, you
Yeah,
can't.
I
I mean,
agree with
you've also got Lethbridge's ghoul. Tom Lethbridge was an archaeologist who was also interested in the paranormal,
you.
and he coined the term the ghoul. And this is where he says that an apparition, which
Mm-hmm.
is a better term than ghost, an apparition,
Agreed.
a non sentient apparition, has lost all the energy that it once had. It no longer appears. And all you get left with is where it walks, is this cold
Oh,
sensation. And eventually, in time, even that fades.
so, and that's interesting because I don't know that they've seen the lady in white in the last few years. So what you're saying is that that particular entity at one time was an apparition that
Hmm.
just faded away, but its energy still stayed behind, imprinted into the material or the building, the land,
It
whatever.
just hasn't got enough energy to materialize anymore. And yet, as I
Okay.
said before, you do house alterations and it
Hmm.
might kick it off again.
Interesting. I okay. I like that theory. I'm not. I'll be honest. I hadn't heard that one before, but that makes a lot of sense because I'm thinking in this particular building, for example, I know there was no traumatic event that happened in the building that included an apparition of a person that looked like that. I know that historically.
We're on the white woman now, the white
Yeah, we're
lady.
still the white
Yeah,
lady
right.
sits there.
Sorry.
Okay, there's nothing in that building historically that happened that created an event that would be imprinted. So why is it there? Could it be possibly an issue of the land? Um, Dan brings something up too here. He's talking about maybe weather conditions, humidity, moon phase, or even time can trigger the energy stored in the material. Yeah,
As good an argument as I've heard.
yeah,
As I
I totally
said,
agree.
I've got no answers. I've looked into it for years and I've got no answers because you keep applying you get an idea, you apply all the data to the idea, and it comes up short on 2 or 3 occasions. So it, maybe it's more than one factor. I don't know. I really don't know.
See, and that now I could actually get triggered into my usual mantra of that's why we've got to come up with methodologies in order to repeat this. But I won't do that to you tonight because I know you got a headache. So, um, uh, I see a few folks out there. Deborah, any thoughts on that? How about you, Your Honor, Judge Dredd? Any thoughts on residual versus intelligent, sentient versus non-sentient types of hauntings? Um, Obviously the ones that get us excited the most are the ones that react to us somehow. And I see John Brinkley out there. John, good to see you. Any thoughts on residual versus intelligent haunts? I'd like to hear from you guys what you might think about it. This might be a good time. It's kind of off the subject a bit, but maybe a good moment to ask David's question. Is that all right with you there, Christopher?
Well, I've got another couple to go through if you got time.
Okay, well, wait. Okay, yeah, well, okay, David, hang on. We'll get to your question in
Other
just a minute.
other things which need considering.
Okay.
Vardogers.
Say what?
Vardogers.
Yeah, this
It's
is a family show. You
Norwegian.
shouldn't talk like. I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
it's Norwegian or Swedish. I can't remember which, but it means
Okay.
a foregoer, i.e., the apparition of you appears coming
Doppelganger.
into a building. No, it's not a doppelganger. That's
Okay.
different.
Okay.
It appears in the building and walks through, but is, if you like, a non sentient. And yet, a minute later, you'll walk into the building and you're sentient. So it's like a recording, but it precedes you. It's just of you. It's a
As you're
very
living,
weird one. Sorry?
and you're alive. I mean, if it
Oh
was me,
yes, oh yes.
I would.
It's an apparition of the living. This is
I've heard that.
Christ. That brings right doppelgangers, where you appear elsewhere simultaneously, where you're somewhere and that appears somewhere else, usually miles away. A doppelganger. Um, Crisis apparitions. Now these are fascinating. usually, often time of death apparitions where somebody who is dying or has just died appears
Mm-hmm.
to the living. Now, these are usually sentient. These are fascinating.
Yep.
So it goes to
Yes.
another side. But the term ghost, as I keep saying, is so anachronistic that
True.
I mean, you really have to start splitting it into what do you actually mean? Tell me what this thing is doing,
Mm-hmm.
because
Agreed.
otherwise we're fumbling. We're sort of saying, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this, it could be that. You've got to be specific and say, well, it didn't recognize us. It walked straight through a wall. It did this. It did that. What happened the next night? Well, it did exactly the same. And then you can start saying, well, sorry, mate, you've got a recording.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, right on to the next bit. That's my 10 cents
No,
worth.
no, I think that's fascinating, and it does connect with this whole thing. For example, if my doppelganger, and if I remember the story correct, if you see your own doppelganger, your death is imminent. I think that's the wives' tale. But let's just say the Swedish term. What was that word you used again? Swedish
Vardoga.
Vardoga.
Vardoger. Vardoga.
So, and I've read about that. I never heard the term used for like that, but that's a great example of that energy somehow being, I don't know if it's being trapped or being ported. I don't know. That's interesting, but it's still, you wonder if that's got to be an energy type of thing.
I don't know. As I said, as I'll say to anything, if anybody asks me, well, what's going on? My only answer I've ever got for anyone is shit happens,
Shit.
because that's it. Shit happens.
Yeah, it does. So yeah, and I think that the term we use for an intelligent or sentient apparition, that seems so much simpler for us to grasp. It's
Oh
an
yeah,
entity on the other side. It's this residual or non-sentient being that's kind of like, well, how does it really fit into the puzzle? Is it really an apparition, or is it just merely energy?
it has to be an apparition. I mean, once again, this is a term. An apparition is just something seen, so it's definitely an
Fair,
apparition.
fair, okay.
Um,
But
is it
okay.
is it just a video recording? Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't do anything else.
Mhm.
But how it records, I don't know. What starts the recording off again? I don't know. What stops the recording? I don't know.
Mhm.
But it just seems to be a recording that occurs for whatever reason
Uh-huh.
at whatever time.
Okay, I'm just trying to look at something here on the thing here. Um, by the way, Ike, I don't know if you're on yet, buddy. This is the beer. Watch the beginning if you missed the beginning of the show. Paradolia Brewery. I'm excited about it because of what we had happen there. I'm going to be honest with you. We walk in, it's daytime. Pete has told us some of the things that have happened in there. But how often do we really do a paranormal investigation during the day? I know you do.
Every
That's your primary.
time.
But oftentimes we don't because we're working during the day and stuff. But we did
That's
it.
the
It was
problem.
so cool. Yeah, yeah,
That's the
exactly.
problem. You have to fit it in when you can do it.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I mean, what annoys me, I mean, this is going right off the topic we wanted, but what annoys me is people assume that the only time you can do an investigation is at night, but it's
Oh yeah.
not. But sometimes it's the only time that you've got the time to do it. It's the
Mhm.
only time that the building is available for you to do it.
Exactly.
And sometimes that's the time when when the phenomena, the apparitions occur.
Well, that's why we went in the morning. It's a brewery and they're open at night, and they have a lot of people that come in. It's a very popular place in Sebastian, Florida. So to do it at night didn't make sense unless we went there at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and that's rough on everybody, especially when you're working. So we
Isn't
we
it
went there.
just?
Well, that's why we went during the day, and it does speak to that. And I find most of the time it's folks that are fairly new to the field or don't have a full understanding of the field. Oh, you do this during the day? I thought it was just done at night. And it really doesn't. We've got one of our best EVPs. I think you've heard it yourself at an old prison here in the county. It was a former state prison. We actually got in the 3:15 in the afternoon. Evan, my one son, and I were, and along with Dan, Dan was with us. I forget who else was. Jen was with us. We were scoping the place out for an investigation at night. So we had to go during the day, and we're in the major lockdown area of the prison. And we walk out, and Evan makes the comment 3:15 in the afternoon. Shame they were locked up in life, and they're still locked up in the afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we got recorders going like we always do, and then we catch when we review it later, get a male voice, loud, raspy, whispery voice. Hell, we ain't dead. 3:15
Yeah.
in the afternoon, and we got some other EVPs in the place during the day. But I mean, my theory on that is daytime. People are busy, phones are ringing, cars are going. You're worried about work, you're worried about paying bills, picking up this person, getting that person to the doctor, and our minds just are not as clear and as open as they are at night. Maybe that's my theory on it. Why people don't have as many experiences during the day. Your thoughts?
I'm thinking.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
thinking. I'm trying to think. I'm not
Yeah.
very good at thinking.
And Dan brings this up too. It's just like a tree falling in the woods. Do spirits do activity if nobody is there? Well, heck yes, they do. And I think we've seen that. We certainly got it last Saturday night at the Paradolia Brewery. So anyway, you still
I think
thinking?
the answer is if you set a camera up and you walk off,
Mm-hmm.
it's still going to record things, and I've had that plenty of times. It's like the one which I've just released on Tholthorpe, where I've got the crashes and bangs in the Romney hut, where it was all locked up and we'd gone way down the road.
That was the Angry Sergeant one, wasn't it?
No, that was the one today. This was the one a couple of days ago.
Oh, okay.
Which was the first investigation where we'd left the hut, we'd locked the hut up completely and utterly on a deserted old industrial, the technical site of the airfield, absolutely empty, sort of 1 o'clock in the morning sort of thing. We'd gone off a quarter of a mile down the road to the old hospital site on reviewing the audio the next day or the day after or the week after, whenever it was. You can hear us shut the doors, get in the car drives off. And then you've got doors slamming and crashing and EVPs going off and bangs and everything going off. Absolutely empty hut. So things are happening even if there's nobody there. It doesn't need us to do things. It's happening all the time.
They're still carrying on with what they're there for. Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, when we were with you at my mind just went blank. I guess the Sidonia 76 is getting to me already. Where we were, the airfield, Elvington in England.
I didn't know if you meant York or where. So.
Yeah, no, it was in Elvington. We got Sergeant Fury. That was in the middle of the day.
Eventually, but it just takes time to process the audio.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. I don't know if anybody out there has had any experiences during the day. I think they're as common as they are at night. We just don't notice them quite as much. So that's just my thought on that one. So let me bring this one up. Go ahead. You have another thought?
No. I was just going to say perhaps it's time for David's question.
Oh, okay. I was going to just do that, and I am going to. David made the comment that we talk about EVPs, we talk about spirit boxes and different things, but we never talk about Ouija boards. And are Ouija boards a effective way to communicate with the other side? Now, I'll start off with my thoughts on it. Ouija boards. All right, let me back up just a little bit. I know this is walking a thin line, but many times when we are we're at Elvington, we're asking, who's here? Does anybody want to talk to us? Sergeant Fury's name comes up. And you of course had the ladies, I believe, in the wax village.
Yeah, I'm thinking of going back there. That was well in there.
I'll tell Judith. We were just talking to folks who was there. The Ouija board tends to open up doors, asking things to come in, and I think that's where you get into trouble. And this is just my opinion. It opens doors. I remember, and most people use this thing as a stinking parlor game. I think it's very rarely used as a legitimate tool, and I'm sure there's teams out there that does. I'm not knocking that, but I think you're actually conjuring something. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. And you're opening doors, asking something to come in, and that's, excuse me, that's where you get into trouble. Your thoughts?
At the end of the day, it's a lump of wood with letters on and a
Mm-hmm.
planchette to move it around. Problems with it. It's unlike other forms of communication, it can be faked very, very easily. And nobody would ever know that you're doing it. It can be faked. And I don't like it for that reason. It can be faked easily. People also regard it as a game. Yeah, you just pull out the Ouija
I
board.
agree.
Right, let's have a Ouija
I agree.
session of an evening. We're bored. Let's do this. If you're going to use it, start off with a protection, a prayer, or something.
Mm-hmm.
And when you finish, close it down with exactly the same method. Because otherwise, you're just sort of saying, you're putting a light up outside the house saying, come on in, boys.
Come on in,
Mi
yeah.
casa, su casa. Do what you want.
Amen. And
So
that's where you get in
that's why
trouble.
I don't use them. I don't need to use them, but I don't use them.
Mm-hmm. Um,
And it has been known on one investigation in the past that somebody pulled one of these out and I walked out.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I firmly believe it's something that conjures and gives permission to come in. And in my mind, that's where you get into trouble. Now, you mentioned something, and that you do. That you would do if you had a Ouija board, and I'm sure you do it during your investigations, a blessing or of protection or a request for protection up front and at the end. You know, our group, we say a little prayer at the beginning, at the end, asking for protection. Whatever your religious belief or your spiritual belief leads you to believe, asking for protection can be really important. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, this it, it's vital. It really is. I mean, you're going into a realm that you've got no protection against. How are you going to stop something that you can't feel, touch, and it can? So the only thing you do is you use a spiritual protection.
Mm-hmm.
That's if you don't do that, you're stupid.
Oh, Dan Squatch has a question for you, and this is one thing. We're going back to Ouija boards for just a second.
No, Bigfoot don't use Ouija boards.
Sorry, Dan, you're out, bro.
Yeah.
His question is: do mediums and psychics have stronger results using Ouija boards, in your opinion?
Don't know. I've never used one, so I can't say. Um, do mediums actually use them? I mean, almost every medium I've ever talked to says I wouldn't touch them with a barge pole.
Mm-hmm.
So
For the same
I don't
reason,
know. Maybe it's different over there.
Mostly I see folks that are interested in using the Ouija boards are usually not experienced in the field at all. They may be breaking into it, they may not understand it. Most, I won't say all folks that I've talked to that are paranormal researchers and investigators prefer not to use them. And I can't speak for everyone, but this is my experience. And if there's somebody out there that has a different angle on it, I'd love to hear from it. If you use a Ouija board during your paranormal investigations, I'd like to hear about it. I'd like to hear the parameters you put up, the safeties you put around it, how you use it, what are the parameters of its use. So if you're out there and you are in this line of work, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Most folks that I've talked to, Chris, don't. But that's just my experience.
The only this might touch on the question, but it's not really. The only time that I've ever participated in anything even remotely like this was just a glass on a table.
Okay.
Not a Ouija board, a glass on a table, not even a circle of things around, just a glass on the table. And they were asking, can you move it to this or that or this or that? Nothing was happening. Full stop.
Yeah.
I went near it. But I wasn't even in the room to start with. I just refused to take part in any of it. But nothing was happening. And then just for my own curiosity, I went over there and put my hand about 4 inches above the glass while they were doing it, and the glass launched itself off the table and onto the floor. So does that answer the question? Do
Yeah,
mediums have an impact on the board? I don't know, but that's
that happened.
that's the closest thing that I've ever done to it.
Well, Dan is suggesting that maybe that Bigfoot uses Ouija boards, and that's how they stay hidden. I don't know how you feel about that, but
Oh,
that's
I think I just think when they go back to the tribes and say they've seen a human, they're not believed.
Mm. Well, I'm going to, just as a quick sidebar, folks, if you're listening and you're interested, next week, we got a guest coming on the show. We're getting our first guest on the show. It's a guy named Rob Robinson, good friend of mine. He is known as the Legend Tripper down here in my neck of the woods in South Florida. And he is an expert on the skunk ape, Bigfoot, especially in Florida. And he and Chris, in fact, he told me today when I spoke to him, or yesterday when I spoke to him, Chris, he's dying to talk to you about the differences between Wild Man Bigfoot over there and ours over here, and so that it's going to be an interesting show. And that's next week. Dan Squatch next week, Bigfoot. So please join us for that. Moving right along. Anyway, so getting back to the blessings and things or protections, I'll call it. So it's a little more general. What do you do, Chris? What do you do to protect yourself, or if you were with a team that you were the only medium in? What would you do to protect them?
I'd just get in touch with the spirits and just say, look after these buggers.
Okay.
They're not going to come near me. They by and large they don't like me. They keep clear unless they actually want to talk to me. Any spirits causing trouble just tend to hightail it off to wherever they lurk, and then I've got to go and try and track them down.
Okay.
I just ask the spirits or my guides to just sort of look after everyone.
Okay.
There's other things I can do, but I don't even know how to
speaking.
describe it.
Yeah, generally speaking, you're just asking for help from the other side to protect them.
There is no difference between what I do and someone asks saying a prayer. To tell you the truth, you're doing exactly the same thing. All you've got to do, what you have to do, is know before you go and do these things exactly what you believe in.
That's it, and it could be anything from a religion based in Buddhism to a Christian religion to any religion or
belief in Mickey
spiritual.
Mouse. If you believe Mickey Mouse is going to look after you, yeah, it's belief, and that's what it all comes down to: belief.
Gonna back up on you just in a second here because I got a question from Jonah, and she says, Chris, and I don't know. This is an interesting question. I don't even know how to answer it. Have you ever captured a residual EVP? And I guess
wouldn't even know the difference.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of at. I mean, you have no way of knowing if it's a residual or not because you don't know.
The only way I could sort of say anything like that would be if it's heard all the time doing the same thing in the same room at the same time.
Yeah.
And
have
the answer to that would be no.
Yeah. Nor have I.
But have these things been going on and we can't hear them and you can only capture them on tape and somebody only does it once? And then you know what it's like. A lot of these investigators are like bird twitchers. They go once to a place and that's it. They don't go back again because they've ticked it off on their list.
Right.
And you need to go back again and again and again. You've got to see what's going on.
That's what kills me. And I'm going to getting off of my sidebar for a second. Folks, and okay, as you know, and there's a lot of folks out there that know me know, I have two categories of paranormal investigators. You've got the thrill seeker, and I've got no problem with that. I know we've had this discussion. You're not too thrilled with them, but there's a place for folks that want to just go out and experience it. I call those paranormal thrill seekers as compared to paranormal researchers and investigators. If you're going to go to one place, let's just pick a very famous spot, the Stanley Hotel, and you're just going there for one night, for one event to get a thrill. You're not really investigating it. You're going there one time to get what you can get and take it home and maybe show it, and that's great. But you're not investigating anything. You're having a thrill event. if you're going to truly investigate and research something, you have to go back numerous times, different conditions, maybe different equipment, different times of day, different moon phases, all those things to properly research a venue. You can't go there once and say, it's investigated, by God, I got the answers. That's my opinion anyway. It's
And you
my
can't
soapbox.
turn around and say, yeah, when we've cleared the ghosts and you've got no ghosts left.
Oh, now that's a whole different subject, and
But it's true though, isn't it? You get these
it does.
groups and they go in once and they walk around and do a bit of mumbo jumbo and that's it. All ghosts are gone.
Yeah, and I think there's people out there that genuinely believe they have, and I am not a medium or psychic, so who am I to judge that? But just based upon my background as an investigator, both criminal as well as paranormal, you've got to keep looking at a subject and dig out all the answers before you can make a decision. Now, you just said something that will bring us back to this last subject, and that has to do with go in and get rid of a ghost and say it's all clear. Getting back to the protection part of it, just kind of lost my train of thought there. Have you ever? What are your feelings about folks that use just sage and they sage a building or they sage themselves? Are they really protecting themselves just using sage, or nipple bits
Personally,
of?
I'd say no.
Okay.
You know, I've always had this nagging thought, and that's the best I can put it down. The nagging thought that how can something from this plane of existence affect something from another plane of existence which doesn't interact?
No, that's an excellent point. Okay.
That's the nagging thought I have. Now, some
Now a
people swear
prayer.
blind. Some people will swear blind by smudging. They'll say, "Oh yeah, it takes care of everything." Blah 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 blah. Oh, we put salt on and we run salt around and we scatter salt and we light lights and we have incense and way and off we go. Are they? Is it actually doing something, or is it actually just bolstering your belief?
How about this one? Is it pissing off the other side or the entity that you're trying to protect yourself from?
Does it have any effect on it? We're back to my nagging idea once again. Yeah, we're back to shit happens.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. I won't decry anyone. If they walk around with a sage stick burning X, Y, and Z all over the place, and after that event, whatever was going on has stopped, that's a result.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. That's
But
a result.
okay, but what do you mean it stopped? Does this mean you've gone back for a period of
Ah,
3 or 6 months and
well,
examined what you had, and there's no activity after that, and
this
the airs?
is what when I do a clearance,
Mm-hmm.
I'm forever trying to bump into people for weeks afterwards saying, is it still okay? Is there anything? Any cold spots? Anything this? Any that?
Mm-hmm.
Just to make sure that it's gone. If I walk around a place and I get in touch with Auntie Mabel, um, and Auntie Mabel's just come and sat down, and I've told the people all about Auntie Mabel being there, and they're going, "Oh yeah, Auntie Mabel, yeah, she was a right old cow and X, Y, and Z, and yeah, she'd do this sort of thing," and you're sort of going, "Yeah, right, okay." I'll talk to Auntie Mabel, and eventually I'll get Auntie Mabel to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Auntie Mabel causing the trouble? This is the whole
Touche.
problem I have. Was it Auntie Mabel causing the trouble, or was it a little bugger who's gone and hidden in the kitchen while I'm in the living room, who's going to come back out, when he thinks the coast is clear and start playing up again? Which
Mm-hmm.
is why I keep checking. Have I cleared it? Is the problem gone?
Mm-hmm. There are folks that will say, yes, the problem's gone, and I know it for this reason. And I know the first thing out of your mouth is going to be they're they're BSing everybody. But is there a way for somebody with the gift as you have it to just be able to determine the problem is solved? Is that, do you
You
think
can
that's possible?
you can feel a difference. That's all I will say. But has the little bugger causing the trouble gone and hidden? Because they
Okay.
can, they can. I'm firmly convinced that they can actually leave the building and then come back in. if they want to. There's nothing I can do to stop it.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because we did an investigation at one of our favorite places down here, a place called the Holstrom House. In fact, we'll be there Saturday doing helping the Historical Society with an event. And we were in the attic one time, and we, through our equipment, which included rods, Evan was using them, and our equipment, we had kind of a yes/no conversation that gave us the indication. I won't say the proof, but the indication that spirit, that they move around however they feel like it. They go between here and there all the time.
Yep.
And
Very
that I
much
thought,
so. Very much so. But getting back to the specifics of whoever's causing the trouble, there's nothing to say that they go next. I'm dealing within this house. They nip next door or the one after that, and then when I've cleared out and they think it's all clear, they come back in. Often, I will find that I'll be talking to the people and they'll be saying, "Oh yeah, well, we've had a séance in here, or we've operated a Ouija board in here, or they've done this, that, and the other, or they've got a collection of old dolls, or don't get me started on dolls. Oh hell, I
it ranks right up there with clowns, I bet.
It ranks exactly the same as clowns. It really does, and neither are good. But you've got all these people doing these things, and they're bringing in old things into their house, and they're not cleansing them before they bring them in. They're not doing anything to make sure that nothing's attached to them. Which is another topic completely.
Yeah, which we're going to
So
have to hit on that sometime.
I'll go into a place, do what I do, say, well, to me it feels clear. How's it feel to you? And people say, well, it feels calmer. It feels we haven't got the cold spot by the door anymore. We haven't got this and that. And I'll go away, and 2 weeks later, they've brought something else back into the house. Even though you tell them, look, the problem with this is you've just brought this old doll in. It had an attachment with it. I've broken the attachment. It's gone. Don't do it again. They do it again.
It's people for you.
Yeah, yeah. But then they're straight on the phone. Oh, it's back.
What'd you expect?
That's what you say. But every time it's back. They don't listen. It's back.
Couple of comments here I want to mention. First, Danny again he said he agrees he's not a big fan of saging and things. They say using sage, it always depends on your intent, but how can your feelings affect a burning weed? Good point on that one, Dan. I got to agree. Now, His Royal Highness.
sorry. They're just talking to me on the other side, and they just say, "Go and ask a dopehead."
Well, His Honor, Commanding Judge said, my mate tried a bit of do-it-yourself exorcism. Boy, that's always dangerous. For the spirit in his house. He claimed it seemed to have worked. It didn't. On meaning, was it Paul, right? On my last visit, his resident interrupted my sleep, and his young son was visited by a man in his room. So once again, this is somebody who, and I've seen this a lot of people that have enough training or information to be dangerous, doing these types of things and thinking, oh, I've done it, and it comes back double fold. And Deborah Goldberg just jumped in there. Hi, Deborah. Thanks for jumping in here. She says, all my most exceptional investigations have been done at dawn. Okay, so we're talking daylight here. Chris is spot on when it comes to renovation causing an increase of activity, and I totally agree too. It seen it firsthand with my home and several others. So yeah, getting back to the daylight type thing and renovations of home. I think anybody in the business for any length of time and any experience, knows stuff happens during the day, and renovations always stirs something up. So a couple of great comments from our fans out there. Thanks for jumping in, Deborah.
As I keep saying, Deborah's got to come onto an investigation with you.
Well, Deborah's out there in Orlando. That's where Ryan's at, and I'm going to be up there Sunday, in fact, to see Ryan. Deborah, you got to join us. We've got some things coming on, and as a special guest on our show, would love to have you join us on one of them. So you got to reach out to me when you get a chance. So interesting conversation. So man, we've covered quite a bit tonight when you think about it. We've gone everything from residual to intelligent haunts, sentient, non-sentient, daylight, nighttime investigations, smudging, Ouija boards. Man, we've been all over.
Color changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the color changes is the next one.
color changes. Okay.
Oh yeah, color
Can't get-
changes are important.
By the way, I have not seen Ike yet. He has not popped up yet. But in case you haven't
Oh,
got,
he's given up on us. I don't blame him.
oh
I would.
no,
I'd give up on me.
Ike would never give up on us. Ike's a good man. Ike, this stuff, buddy, beats anything you got out there in New Mexico. I'm just telling you. Whew,
he even beats the mescaline, eh?
well, I would go. But yeah, I think Ryan warned me, don't drink too much of this during the show, and I perhaps am because I'm starting to run.
Yes. We're going to get you doing the straight line walk test in a minute.
Oh God, I got to tell you guys this story. This is totally off the subject of the paranormal. Ryan and I are in England last summer, and I'm a bit of a lightweight, I admit, when it comes to this, and I'm
It's very
trying
true.
to.
A bit.
Oh, right, Ryan pops up there. So
Yeah,
Ryan,
Ryan's a witness to this.
yeah. So what was the pub we went to? I can't remember now.
Golden Fleece.
It was the Golden Fleece, okay. And I don't know. I had like three of them. They
You
were all
can't
about.
even remember the name of the pub.
You only had 3.
Yeah.
I,
It's embarrassing. It
Father,
really is.
you let your son outdrink you.
Yeah, I know.
I'm walking down. I'm walking in a straight line. Boom, into a wall. I went. It was great stuff.
It
But,
wasn't into a wall. It was the parapet of the bridge, and you nearly went over it.
Oh, I would go that far. I think you're exaggerating. But Ryan, you're right about this, dude. Heavy duty stuff. Paradolia Brewery, Sebastian, Florida. Strongly recommended. Great place, great people. Anyway, another plug for them because they're great folks. Anyway, so moving right along. Oh, now here we go. How about? Oh, this is Dan. Dan, you got to understand something about Dan. Dan is one of those orb guys. Okay, so Dan says, and I'm teasing you, Danny boy. How about I'm not sure what you're saying. How about orbs? Are they always ghosts? No, they're mostly bugs, dust, or moisture. Your thoughts, Chris? Because I'm gonna get
But
on.
not always.
Okay, you're gonna be on Dan's side. Go ahead.
But not always.
No,
No, I'd say 90 up to 95% is just pure rubbish.
Mhm.
But not always. You cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater.
You're right. I just have to dig.
Especially if you take a photograph without flash and you
Agreed.
get an illuminated orb in your photograph.
Mhm.
You tell me that that's not something that's there. It's not just artifact.
Or if
And
you
then
see it,
then
or if you
then
see
you
it
get
with
the
your
ones
eyes.
seen with your eyes, which I tend to. I'm a splitter. I really am a splitter. There's lumpers and splitters. Lumpers will say ghosts. Splitters will say, oh, well, there's all these various bits. I'm a splitter. And I always say there's orbs, which are just rubbish, and there's balls of light, which are energy.
Mhm.
Because I like to differentiate between dust and insects and rubbish and genuine. And
Fair
as I
enough.
said, there is a small proportion of orbs, balls of light, which are genuine. I've captured them myself, and I know I've captured some after seeing them with my eyes.
Yeah, and I have too. I've seen twice now, and they're blue. And I'm going to get into why blue is important to me in just a second. But 2 times I've seen a blue and probably about that big ball of light exit from a wall and circle back and go into a wall. And I saw that with my eyes. So I grant you. And I got 3 photographs today from a friend of the FBPI and Indian River Hauntings, Charlotte Tripson. I don't think Charlotte's listening, but if anybody knows Charlotte, tell her I mentioned her on the show. She sent me a set of 3 photographs taken on the river, the Indian River, which is the intercoastal waterway here. And it was taken by 2 different cameras, okay? Different positions, so you can't even say it was atmospheric. It was really 2 different positions, but each time those 2 different cameras caught the same size and shape blue orb on there. And I found that interesting. I got to admit, I found that interesting. So, I teased Dan about orbs. In fact, we just got some T-shirts we're getting ready to sell to folks that are following us, and one of them is "One man's dust is another man's orb" is the thing on the T-shirt.
You leave my orbs alone.
Okay, all right, Danny. Looks like you got a compatriot here, buddy. So, but what do you think is the easiest way for folks? And we're heading down towards the end of the night already. God, that went quick. What's the easiest way you think for somebody to tell the difference between an orb, an energy orb, and a piece of dust or a bug? What's your thought?
Firstly, don't use flash.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take it on a mobile phone. Use a genuine camera, and preferably get something. I mean, color does come into it. I mean, I'm not very keen on these wishy-washy, see-through thingies, but I do like, as you say, blue ones very much. Um, they look for things which are generating their own light, and if you've got a video camera.
Yeah,
If you've got a video camera and it's actually sort of zipping around rather than drifting aimlessly, then that to me is pretty substantial proof.
In the Marsh Landing, I remember watching videos on the cameras once, and they would literally go in a straight line, stop, and make a 90-degree turn.
Yeah, I like them.
I found that intriguing. I got to admit. So, I guess the biggest thing in our business is take everything with a grain of salt. Be skeptical about what it is, and make sure that you've done everything to prove it's not natural or man-made before you declare
literally
it.
ask the sensible questions. If you're taking a photograph and you get an orange thing in your photograph, where was the sun? Is there anything it can reflect off? This and that. Take out all the obvious, and if you've still got nothing left, then you start saying, well, this might be something. And that goes for everything. Take out the absolutely bleeding obvious, and then we'll go from there.
And until we get to a point where we've created equipment that can definitively capture and catalog and analyze evidence in a very sterile way, that's all we can do is take our evidence and look at it skeptically and make sure we've done everything we can to explain away any possible answers.
Yeah, you've got to. Even me, I mean, with what the complete antithesis of your investigations, I know, but even I will say, well, hey, there's a cold spot. Yeah, it's right next to a door. You're going to get a cold spot. Obvious things.
Yeah.
You take out I'll walk around and I'll suddenly feel like there's somebody there, but as I said, it could be a draft coming in. It could be a change in this and that, or there's a funny smell. Oh yeah, well they used to wet the bed or something. You know what I mean. You just got to take out the obvious. Once you've got rid of the obvious, if you're still getting something, go with it, run with it.
Absolutely. Well, looks like we're heading down to the last few minutes. I just want to. I'm really encouraged and happy. Next week we're going to get Rob Robinson on with us. I think you're going to enjoy talking to him about. We call him Skunk Ape down here. And when you refer to the Bigfoot as the wild man in your neck of the woods.
Usually wild man, hairy man. Something. There isn't really a term, but British Bigfoot, British wild man, anything like that.
Well, you got this cat-headed critter over there too now, right?
We have. I know personally. I've had that told to me. Do you want me to relate that one?
Sure, take a couple minutes.
It's interesting. I did an investigation on a chap's house down in Folkestone, and when he was a kid, him and his sister were living in London, South London, and they used to play in the local woods. And they said that one day when they were out playing in the woods, I don't understand what they were playing, what they were doing, but they were in the woods. He said they saw two very tall, very skinny men, very white-skinned, with pinky reddy swirls painted on their skin, or at least he thought it was painted on their skin. But what really spooked them was they had cats' heads. They stood watching them for not long because the two figures separated into two directions and started to flank them from two directions, at which point the kids very sensibly scarpered. But if you'd have seen the guy telling me this story, you knew he wasn't making it up, because he actually started sweating when he was telling me this. It was
Interesting.
bringing back a really bad memory.
Well, I honestly, I can't. I mean, I've had the pleasure of going with Rob on an investigation, and I found that really interesting because we got some things out there. Dan Squatch was with us. We got some interesting stuff. I don't know really what it was, but I'm interested in hearing you guys talk, and I'm going to ask questions about dimensional beings. I'm kind of curious to find out. It's one of those things where enough people have talked about it. I can't believe that everybody is having some sort of psychotic event where they think they're seeing something. There's got to be something to it. I just have never experienced it. So I'm going to be really, really interested in hearing you guys talk next week, asking some questions. And I hope you folks out there are going to join us. I know Dan Squatch will be on for that one. But
well, he better be.
He better be, by God. And Dan's even commenting here, many different types of Bigfoot in the States, including the Dogman, which is basically a werewolf. Well, Dan, I'm going to expect you to be jumping in on this show, brother, as well as anybody else out there. I know Ike out in New Mexico has experienced some interesting things out there. And if you're out there, Ike, I'd like to hear something about skinwalkers. Is that part of this whole thing? Are these dimensional issues?
Yes, definitely.
Are these dimensional issues? We just don't know. But either way, folks, we're going to look forward to having you back next week. We've got Rob Robinson on, the Legend Tripper. He's going to talk about a few things, including his new book that he's just written on the subject. So I think you're going to find that very interesting. Either way, we really appreciate all of you joining us tonight. When you get a chance, hit like and subscribe on YouTube. Become one of our subscribers. Spread the word, because this is the program that we want to develop into your forum to talk about your passion of the paranormal, ask questions, share thoughts. Chris and I don't know all the answers. Maybe you've got some answers that we haven't thought of, or a direction that would help us out, and maybe we can do the same for you. So spread the word. On the Air with Indian River Hauntings is about you, the paranormal enthusiast, the paranormal researcher, the folks that want to learn more about it. Join us next Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here in Florida. I guess it's midnight still over there, right, Chris?
It's midnight again here, yeah.
Yeah, okay, it changed
for 1 week. It was lovely.
So, but join us the same time on YouTube next week, folks, and be part of it. Be part of the solution. So with that, have a great night. Ryan, thanks for your work over there in Orlando. And to make you feel any better, buddy, I've only drank about a third of it, so I'm in good shape. Chris, any parting comments, my dear friend?
No, nothing from me. Just thank you to everyone who's watching.
Yeah.
It's humbling to have people actually watching you and me talking.
Yes. So, all right. With that, folks, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next Thursday. Remember, hit like, hit subscribe, hit that little bell so that you know when our content comes back up. Be part of this. See you next Thursday. And as always, we'll see you on the other side. Have a good night, folks.